Parish Ordinance Committee for July 11th, 2019. Ms. Sandy, would you call the roll?
Mr. Mack?
Here.
Mr. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Wascom?
Here.
Mr. Tower?
Here. Item 3, review, discussion, recommendation of ordinances. Eddie, we're gonna do this backward. I'm gonna let Bubba talk about grinder pumps first, so that we're able to get that finalized, and then we're gonna talk about the sewer treatment plants.
I'm gonna table grinder pump for tonight.
Never mind, Eddie, we're gonna table grinder pumps for tonight. Well, you had it on the agenda. I wanted to be sure we got through it. You got it on the big
I
agenda.
did too, but the man that wanted to come speak wasn't able to be here because he's sandbagging.
Okay, Eddie, you wanna come on and let's talk about this ordinance for about 45 minutes, and then see where
I was
we're
gonna
at?
try to do it about 5 minutes.
I like that.
I did have a few phone calls since we introduced that at your last committee meeting. One private sewer operator in the parish would like some input. So he and I are gonna meet, try to the next, maybe before your next meeting. Somebody from the Pontchartrain Basin Foundation and somebody from the, it's not rural water, but it's a local entity, kind of like rural water, that does training for wastewater and water distribution system operators. So I have gotten a little feedback, and I told them, I said, that's exactly what we want.
Let's talk about what the feedback. Let's talk about the operator that called, and let's talk about what his concerns were. So everybody will be aware, because one of the areas that we identified in this ordinance holds the operator and the owner equally responsible. And the operator called Eddie with a concern that if he's told the owner what upgrades need to be made and the owner has refused, he doesn't want to be liable. So let's go over that conversation.
And that, like Mr. Gary said, that was his main, he had a couple other little issues he wanted to discuss, but that was his main concern, which is valid. And that's what I told him. I said, look, that's exactly the kind of input we want. I see your point of view. So think about it, and let's sit down and discuss some ways to mitigate that. It might be that when an operator finds a deficiency, because you could have John Wascom that owns a restaurant and a little treatment plant, and operator X may be operating it for you. Well, when he tells John that, hey, you need to do A, B, C, buy this piece of equipment to keep it operating properly, and you refuse to, for one reason or another, maybe we could have that operator notify the parish, make him obligated to notify the parish of any known deficiencies. And if he does that, maybe we'd put the operator in the clear, and then it would be hung on the owner that, his operator did inform him of upgrades he needed to make to the plant. He didn't do it, so then that would relieve the operator of his portion of the liability. But there's many different ways you could do it, but that would be an example of a change to that draft ordinance that would eliminate that concern for the operators that don't actually own the plant.
And then the Pontchartrain
Basin Foundation.
Support.
I feel like, I don't know what kind of comments they actually have, but I would imagine they should be in support of anything that helps make it more difficult for these community systems to dump raw sewer into the environment, because that's what they are. They're about protecting Lake Pontchartrain.
And the other group was, what was their comment?
About the legalities of some parts of the ordinance, which I'm not an attorney, and I explained to them that before anything would get even voted on by the parish council, I would imagine you guys would send it to Chris Moody, or
What part would they question?
I think they're concerned about the seizure part, probably.
No, they were actually said that it was not legal for the parish government to have a duplicate ordinance that enforces something that DEQ should already be enforcing. They said that was not legal.
I had a question about that. At what point is the state responsible for regulating this versus the parish, Because
Well, I mean,
I think we need to look at that.
well, I think Eddie's addressed it. He addressed it in the last meeting.
They are responsible,
missed that one.
Shane,
Yeah,
but
For what?
They don't.
Okay. Well, I guess we need to talk about that.
Well, I mean, I mean.
Because, I mean, what is our plans to enforce this? How are we, who's
Have you
gonna
read
be
it?
the enforcer?
Have you read it?
Well, I've been trying to, but I'll be honest with you. I don't understand what is currently
Okay,
law
okay,
wait, let me finish.
okay.
Versus what changes were being made, because to me, we have, ordinance here that's printed out, it appears to be the current, and then a bunch of highlights. So to me, I can't really see what's been removed and what's been added to this ordinance, what changes we're truly making. I apologize.
That's all new ordinance. We don't even have an ordinance to address it. That ordinance is new.
Well, there's some things that's currently written about sewage and tying into sewage.
Well, we currently,
Well, there are some state statutes and stuff, Shane, that require a person to tie to community sewer when they're within 300 feet of it, but there's no parish ordinance that mimics that. There's nothing that would give the parish the authority to enforce that. It's a
So it's a
DEQ or a
state-
DHH thing, yes, sir.
Right.
So
Okay,
this, and a lot of this stuff, Shane, it does mimic things that already exist that are, that the DHH or DEQ already requires, but those entities are responsible for the whole state,
What are
and
the
unfortunately,
highlights? What are the highlights in here then, if it's a brand new ordinance?
The highlights are really the talking points that are address particular issues of importance. So, okay, like some ordinance, like an ordinance, will have a section of definitions or stuff that's just legalese that needs to do. The yellow highlighted things are really the issues of concern that probably will generate public interest. I guess, is that a better way? Is that a,
well, it was the things that I saw that would be most contentious and things that you guys are, you're not interested in the definition section all that much, like Gary was saying, but those are the items that are something I feel we need to discuss in detail, so all, and
I got a lot of questions about those definitions, and one of them is the definition of a community sewer system, and throughout the ordinance, it refers to, public sewer system, community sewer system, and tying in, and if you, I guess you have a in compliance, community sewer system. And it took, I couldn't quite, I'm still trying to comprehend a lot of it, you know, there's a whole lot of,
okay,
there's a whole lot here, you know, but I was trying to figure out when you are forced to tie in and when you're not, because I just would like to throw it out there. I do not like the idea if a private individual, that's not currently hooked up to a community sewer system, but that is hooked up to a private sewer system that's in compliance with state laws and state regulations, I don't like forcing that private citizen to have to come up with the thousands of dollars to join that community sewer system or that public sewer system. I don't like, not quite finished? Okay, so I would be more apt to consider, not saying 100% for yet, but consider something that would be where the public sewer system or operator or whatever you want to call that is responsible for the tie-in and the demolition and all that type of stuff under some type of grant. You know, if that particular property owner wanted that, you know, I don't like forcing that upon the citizens. You know, if everything that they have, you know, they've been living there 20 years, and then we come through and we install something, yes, it's better, yes, I want the sewage out the ditch, but I think it's their right to have, you know, bought that property, bought that system. Some people do try to keep it in compliance, you know, and do the right thing, and I don't like having to force them. I mean, what if they can't afford it? What you gonna do? You gonna throw them in jail, fine them $500,000? I don't like that part of it. Now, I listened to y'all the other meeting when you talked about, you know, a street, Jubin crossing or something, we were trying to get developed, you know, and there were people that didn't want to tie in, and it prolonged the project and all that type of stuff. Well, to me, if you're gonna have a project like that, then in that project, you need to have some type of scope or something that talks about, you know, that particular tie-in and that it pays for that, you know, and that you get the buy-in from the property owner. I don't necessarily like that forcible thing.
That
Another
part-
thing too, and I'm gonna go ahead and say this right now, and this is the part about this grinder pump thing that this eating the ever living fire out of me, okay? We've got some individuals that live in a subdivision and they're having trouble with their sewer system, okay? I don't even know all the details about exactly where this thing is, okay? But I know that there's a public sewer system that's not too far from this, I guess you could call it a community sewer system, okay? With these grinder pumps or something or another. And, it's a force main, like Mr. Bubba was saying, and those people are not allowed to tie in because they don't have
Gravity.
I guess you could say a sump or some type of way to actually force pump into that force main. And to me, I think what we need to try to do is come up with something, if we're gonna come up with anything, to work with the people that wanna get on public sewer, then let's try to figure out a way to make it happen, you know, versus people that don't wanna get on public sewer, that have in compliance private sewer systems, force them to do it. I mean, personally, you know, I'm not 100% against this, but I mean, if you have the state of Louisiana and the Department of Environmental Quality, and you got all these organizations out there, and they're the professionals, and they've been doing this forever, and they've got all these regulations. Why on earth would Livingston Parish Government Council want to come in here and try to write, I guess you could say, more more strenuous regulations? I mean, how on earth are we going to be able to stay on top of this and keep changing this and enforce this? And at what expense? I mean, I'm gonna go ahead and get into this today, and I'm a little fired up about this, but the number one problem in Livingston Parish, and you're probably gonna see a lot over the next week, 2 or 3 days, is drainage, you know? And we are extremely limited on funding to fix drainage problems in Livingston Parish. And I think that as a council and as a group, you know, we need to kind of prioritize. And now, don't get me wrong, I think that future development of Livingston Parish might not be quite as critical, but to oversee and ensure that future developments in Livingston Parish are done adequately so that they do not have negative adverse effects against our neighbors is just as critical as fixing the drainage problems, you know, because it kind of goes hand in hand with it. But to me, how much is this going to cost the Livingston Parish government, and do we even have any idea? I mean,
Zero.
Zero? Well,
Zero.
How you gonna enforce it then? Are we gonna hire somebody to enforce and inspect and all these types of things?
Did you read the revenue? There's a revenue section there. It talks about where we generate the revenue. The revenue, the operators pay $5 franchise fee per customer per quarter. And we talked about
So
at
that's
the
gonna go
last,
back to the people?
that goes,
How is that?
that goes to parish government to fund the program. And basically, if what we talked about in the last meeting was that $5 number that Eddie put forward, until we get an actual count of customers and a budget of what it's gonna cost to operate, that $5 number was a number that was generated based on other parishes and what it's cost to operate their program. So basically, the program will be self-funded by the people that are being monitored, that the program will monitor. Okay.
So in simple country boy terms, let me ask you this.
Gary
Okay,
Talbot,
so-
Gary Talbot owns Sewer Treatment Company A. And Sewer Treatment Company A has 1,000 customers. Then Gary Talbert's Sewer Company A will pay the parish $5,000 a quarter to monitor and be sure my 1,000 customers that the plants that service them are in compliance. And so basically, Sewer Company A, with those 1,000 customers over a year, will contribute $20,000 to the operation of the department to oversee that those customers' sewer is in compliance. It will be a franchise fee, just like any other utility pays a franchise fee to the parish. the sewer operator will pay a $5 franchise fee per customer per quarter.
And
That's
what-
how the program's self-funding.
And what we're doing right now, Shane, is
I wanna talk a little bit more about that, but keep
we're
going.
making a public records request to DEQ to get a list of all the sewer discharge permits in the parish, and then we'll be able to back into a total number of customers so that we could refine that number. Because we may figure out, hey, it's gonna cost $290,000 a year to fund a department of 2 people, or whatever we end up deciding we need, if you guys choose to move forward, obviously, to do the monitoring and ensure compliance with environmental regulations. We may find that number is $1 per customer per quarter, or maybe 9, you know, we don't know what it is yet.
Yeah.
We would have to go through that exercise first. And what I wanted to tell you about the 300 feet rule about requiring connection to a community system, whether it's public or private, that's actually a state requirement. And I was just mimicking that in the proposed ordinance that you guys are looking at. So it's not something that the parish is creating, it already
Okay, so,
exists.
Yeah, but in the state requirement, I guess that's where I read that, I thought it was a parish ordinance in the state requirement. Who is responsible for picking up the, fees or costs associated with that tie-in?
For
Because to me,
connecting?
for the connection, the demolition of the private sanitary system, all that type of thing, I mean, to me, I think that's the part that,
It would be the individual, you're right.
and it's
It'd be
documented,
several
it's
thousand
documented
dollars.
in the state law that today?
You can't, now, there are some programs where if you have a bunch of people that are below the low to moderate income level, there is CDBG money, other grant money available that you can use that money to legally connect them. But like me, for instance, or you, I'm sure, it's illegal for parish government to pay to connect me to sewer because I'm above the low to medium income level, and so are you. That's state law. So I don't know how that's a legal question that Chris,
That's what I'm
there may
saying,
be a
how
way
we
to
go
get
force
around
people
that,
to
but
tie in.
Didn't Dedham
I-
have you for free? I thought with, you gave the right of way, they signed it over and we tied them in for free.
now, if they're giving you something of value, then it does give the parish some room to negotiate. You can give a free connection possibly, and it's not really free. They're giving you right of way or servitude, and in return, you're waiving an impact fee or possibly waiving connection fees.
That's what we did.
But like when you're going down the road, you can't do that on both sides because you only need servitude on one side, so. But that is a way in some instances where someone could get connected by giving something of value to the parish in return.
Graysbriar was one of the areas we talked about in last meeting, is that was a HUD,
I think it was a CDBG grant.
was it
I
the
think so.
community development block grant?
I thought it was,
Well,
but
so anyway, so Graysbriar gets a grant, basically Graysbriar had everybody in there had an individual sewer treatment plant that drained into a community collection line. And then the community collection line drained to a open canal.
that's correct.
That was Beaver Creek that ran, no.
I don't remember what
no,
canal it
Anyway,
was.
it ran to an open canal. They got a grant, which basically upgraded a lift station in front of the Evans, installed a lift station in Graysbriar, and then put gravity lines all in Graysbriar. And at that point in time, I think the Community Development Block Grant actually paid to have people tie.
For everybody that was below that low to moderate income
Had
level.
to tie themselves in.
There was maybe 20 people that didn't qualify, and of those 20, I think maybe 8 paid to tie themselves in. The other 12 never did tie in, and that's what created
And that's
that
what we talked
problem.
about the other day, that basically, so for example, the way the law's written now, if you have sewer in front of your house, and you're supposed to tie in, and you don't tie in, you're still responsible for paying for the sewer. So all those people in Graysbriar that didn't tie in paid for sewer as to be treated for all those years without being tied in. So basically, when we developed a sinkhole and had the problem and did the research, the sewer department determined, or the sewer district determined that tying those people in would not give them something of value because they had paid all this money in all these years for a service they didn't render. And so they went and made the tie-ins and eliminated all the old lines. But look, the having somebody to tie in within 300 feet is state law now, as Eddie had said. This ordinance came about. The ordinance came about.
That's some of the things I wanna talk about.
Sewer
What are the problems?
District Two bought how many customers from Modad?
Well, it wasn't just
500?
them, it was three different.
500 customers? Was it a $500,000 transaction?
It might have been, no, it was more than that, probably 3 million,
So it was about 3,000 customers.
probably about 3,000 customers.
How many of those plants were they able to operate without spending any money on them? Zero?
About maybe 20% of them were meeting permit when we bought them.
So basically, of the 3,000 customers that they acquired, only 20% of the discharge was meeting permit. We've got a situation, Graves Creek now, you can't even get a discharge permit. You can't get a discharge permit on Graves Creek at all.
Or some of the co-os.
So basically what happened, you can't even discharge sewer in those areas. You can't discharge anything in those areas. You have killed development in those areas because you can't get a permit for whatever you want to do. Stormwater runoff, I imagine the whole deal is probably affected by that. So in essence, we're dumping, I don't know if that's reflective of the whole parish, the way it operates now, and I think we're working to figure out how many of those discharge permits exist in the parish or in compliance. But given the acquisition that was made during Sewer 2, 80% of the discharge was out of compliance, which means they were putting loadings over above the permitted level into our public ditches and canals and waterways, which in essence is just like fertilizing the grass. So when we're looking at all this stuff growing and weeds and sediment and everything else, if we're exceeding the discharge permit, then we're impacting drainage and the quality of health of everybody. Because every canal in this parish ultimately goes to the Amite River or the Tangipahoa River, which all flow into Lake Maurepas, right? Which ultimately goes into Lake Pontchartrain, which goes into the Gulf. So in essence, when we're outside of compliance, we're contaminating our ditches, which is contaminating our waterways, which is contaminating our lakes. So the whole purpose of this ordinance is to create an environment that we can, as a parish, have some say about what's going into our ditches. It's purely about improving the health of the residents of Livingston Parish.
So what does the state, and who's actually responsible today for the state regulations and getting this in compliance and just?
On some issues, it's DHH, other issues, DEQ, and honestly, they don't have the resources to do it. They're not doing it. That's the whole problem, Shane, is they are the entities right now that should be making sure that these plants are operated properly. And most of the plants in Livingston Parish are not in compliance. Some of them grossly out of compliance. And right now, the parish, you couldn't do anything about it if you wanted to, because you don't have any regulations that would give you the authority to do so.
So you're talking about community sewage systems
So
that were out of compliance?
the systems-
So for example, my subdivision has an oxidation pond operated by a particular business entity. If that oxidation pond is not meeting the standards, then if this parish ordinance was in place and we had an organization that, or a division or a department that went around and sampled that thing, when they sampled it and realized it was out of compliance, they would then contact the operator and give him notice at what point in time he would need to bring it into compliance. If not, he would start being fined. Now, my subdivision's been developed, So there's really no impact to a developer or anything else. But these new subdivisions that they might build and throw a package unit up, and then wasn't one of the plants never had electricity ever hooked to it? So they bought a mechanical community sewer treatment plant that the pump never ran from day one. And nobody knew it. DEQ didn't do it, DHH didn't do it, it continued to drum.
Well, let me ask you a question. Aren't they required to sample?
Yes.
Didn't those samples get sent into DEQ, DHH? Okay, well,
It's possible,
Let's
John,
deal
that they
with
didn't
the
have
small
it, they didn't even have a
problems
discharge permit on that one. It's
so
possible.
doesn't the parish charge a permit through DHH for sewer, for community, system?
Nope, not right now. You don't.
I think you're wrong there, Mr. Eddie.
Well, don't be confused with the office.
Now, this
that's being
ordinance is not
operated.
gonna affect the individual modads for a single-family residence.
Well, okay, well, that's
This
what I'm
ordinance
talking about.
doesn't address those.
So we have a DHH that receives a $5 permit fee, I think, that takes a permit or fee to give a sewer permit, don't we?
Right now,
But it's not a parish entity.
right now, every time you build a
entity.
house, you do have to go to health department right there
Right here in Livingston.
and pull a permit. But
Okay.
but this is really something
This
different
doesn't
from
even
that.
affect this. This doesn't even deal with this.
Okay, so, I mean, you said the question a while ago was they never even pull samples. So
They-
why couldn't we just require, everyone who sends a sample to DHH to send a copy to us?
This ordinance would require that.
And, just say, look, we wanna see a copy of your samples as well.
Yep.
And then we could deal with that in-house as far as how to start monitoring them or checking the ones, cause a lot of them are incompliant. We don't even have to go tackle them. Leave those people alone if they're compliant.
Well, and that's exactly what this would do, John. Basically, the first thing is you gotta identify how many plants you would be responsible for, which we've made the request to DEQ and they're compiling that information so I can bring it to you guys. And the ones that are in compliance, you aren't gonna be messing with them at all,
We're
obviously.
charging them a $5 fee.
You would,
And that can't be passed on to the customer without going to the Public Service Commission, correct?
correct.
So the operators are really gonna get hit, they're gonna scream on this.
But think about it, per customer, it's gonna be, in its current form, would be $20 a year per customer.
If
The
it's
average
not-
person pays, I don't know, maybe $25 to $45 a month
Right,
in
right.
sewer user fees typically, something like that. So it would only be $20 a year. And it could end up being $5 a year once we see how many customers it would be based on.
I'm hoping we don't take any action on this tonight, and I'm hoping that.
I don't think it's
Oh,
on the council agenda.
we're not, this, look.
We're really just discussing it.
We've talked about this being a long,
It's gonna be
drawn-out
many
process.
I know, we
months.
said that about Phil Dirt too, didn't we?
And Phil Dirt's back at the committee, just sitting there.
Yeah, that's right, so, but it got pushed up fast, and it was supposed to be just talked about, so.
Yeah, please don't take any action on this for quite some time. We got a lot of work to do to get something.
Because I've heard from a couple operators.
Yeah,
about
and we
this
need to
whole
give
thing.
everybody an opportunity to
And
come
they
and
have some
speak and give us
serious
input.
questions on this.
Cause they're gonna come up with ideas that are better than what you see in the draft ordinance.
So let me ask a question, or if an operator's in compliance, what is their concern? The $5 a customer per year, per quarter? If they're in compliance, then this doesn't even impact them.
Well, no.
Wait a minute now. Now, I may be confused. I mean, I'm just kind of getting into this, but,
Mr. Chair's got a question.
I thought that it said that if public, sewer system was in the vicinity, it doesn't even give a distance, it just says vicinity, then you had to tie in the community system.
It does.
So it's definitely gonna affect them even if they are in compliance, correct? And it's at the, I mean, whose expense is it to pay to get that to some type of standard that's listed in here? I mean, and what are those
Well,
standards?
I mean,
Where's all
look,
that money come from? I'm just
look,
asking,
Wait a second, this committee, Eddie generated a rough document for this committee to go through. He highlighted on the yellow parts, the parts he thought would be contentious. And this document is organic. This document can be changed throughout the process.
Yeah,
The
y'all may
hearing-
elected
the
eliminate that
hearing-
from the regulations, that's up to you
The reason that we
guys.
have in these ordinance committee meetings is to go through, identify the problems. Let's don't trash the document and throw it in before we start. Let's look at the areas of concern.
I'm just asking
And,
questions.
and I mean, so I think that, I mean, ideally, you would start on the front page and go through it and go through the yellow sections.
Well, let's do that.
I mean, that's ideally what,
I mean, it's 40
I
pages
still have
long,
one
though.
problem.
Grind the pump.
No, is they're going to be putting in force main from Juban Road all the way through Wax Road to a new development. But they've got to get permission from the parish to go down parish right of way. So,
correct.
I mean, a lot of people don't want them coming through their yard. Which is parish right of way, but still their yard too.
Yeah, and I think in this thing we address in the future, creating a whole nother right of way, a whole nother area to run sewer in. It's addressed in here for future development, where to put the sewer outside the parish right of way.
Is it going to help the people that live on that particular road, I'm gonna say?
Well, Bubba, look, to create parish-wide sewer is initially, and Eddie, if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, we've got to address new development before we address old development. That's just a given fact. We,
But why
Gra-
not,
well, 'cause,
why not
okay.
address old development while you going right through the front door?
because the cost of paying for that stuff is being provided by new development. And the cost of running gravity lines is tremendously expensive. And basically the sewer district, I don't wanna say doesn't get any tax dollars. The dollars that it generates are from its customers and new development coming in to pay for these upgrades. So in essence, for example, all the development that's happening in that part of the parish where you're talking about is gonna pay for a new sewer treatment plant off of Buddy Ellis Road. And so in the future, any development that's gonna occur in that area will go into that parish, sewer district operated regional sewer treatment plant and meeting the discharge standards set up by DEQ. That's gonna create a situation of, quote, parish-wide sewer in that area. Now, all those people that have been there for years, somebody at some point in time is gonna have to bear the cost of running those those gravity lines down the road. The sewer district, under the current setup, the way it's funded and the way it exists, cannot afford to do that without grant money or raising the rates. It's that simple. So in
I can
essence,
see that, but I think that the developer should, put into that cost also.
well, here's the
He's the
deal.
one benefiting.
Or we just don't develop it.
Well,
The force mains, Mr. Harris, that is a first phase, like Gary's saying, where we go and we pick up the subdivisions that already have a collection system and we take those over and we send it to our treatment facility. The second phase is to come back through with gravity, but like Gary's saying, you've got to generate enough revenue so you can bank the money to spend the $70 a linear foot or whatever it's gonna cost in that area to put in the gravity sewer. But I promise you, the plan is to put gravity sewer, but it might be 2 years, it might be 7 years down the road before you see a gravity line adjacent to that force main. But that is the plan, that is our goal, is to have
Those
every
people
house
out there
along that
that
road
live on that road where
connected.
they've already ran the force main, they don't understand that. Why is it gonna take so long for them to get,
Because like Gary's saying, the subdivisions we're picking up, they're paying impact fees of $3,800 a house. That money is being banked by the sewer district to pay for future upgrades and expansions in that area where that revenue was generated, so.
I mean, you know, the only way to get the money is from the new development. There's no way to go, the way the law's written, if we provide sewer down past your house, we can't charge you an impact fee. Am I correct?
If the
I mean,
house was there before the sewer, then you don't pay an impact.
you don't pay an impact fee.
Right.
So in essence, they've gotta save money to accumulate the ability to go back and run those lines. Now, when I say save money, they're gonna bank some of it. They're ultimately gonna wait till they can generate enough revenue from the customer base to sell a bond. I mean, that's just how the deal works.
That's how we've been doing it.
That's
right.
that's how they've been growing the system. I mean, they have worked with developers. They now own 2 portable, getting ready to own 3 portable?
One and getting ready to possibly be 3,
Right.
yeah.
In essence, and so they're able, I mean, the way they've been growing the sewer district has really been very efficient in they're requiring no money from the parish, and they're moving forward with creating a situation where as the parish grows in areas, they'll be able to, you know, provide sewer, but the people that are already there, it's gonna take time to get that, because those people aren't gonna wanna spend $3,500 for an impact. Which, I mean, if they did that, then it would be pretty easy to
Then you
run
could put it in.
that gravity line.
In a couple of cases, like over in my area, Corner Hood Road's a prime example. The city ran out of money,
Right.
and then they have a couple of more places around. Well, the road runs, that subdivision behind my house, they ran out of money about halfway down. And they're never gonna go back and do anything with it. And that's the city, that's not.
I mean, I mean, look, if we're gonna clean up the ditches and waterways in Livingston Parish with respect to, you know, loadings that are being discharged outside of sewer, the only way we can start is to address these package units that are we're not gonna address your individual MODAD or your individual septic tank or your individual delta that you have at your house. That's not even what we're talking about. We're talking about permitted sewer treatment plants that are governed and then have a discharge permit that you have to meet some standard. Your house, if you've got a MODAD, you have no discharge permit, you have no sampling standard. I mean, basically, if there's a transaction, a sale or whatever, then the health department is looking for an inspection report. We're not even dealing with that. We're not even trying to deal with that. We're dealing with the business side of sewer to make sure that those people that are making a profit on sewer are making it, are taking care of our waterways and discharging to the standard that they're supposed to discharge. That's what this ordinance, the large portion of this ordinance is
I
about.
mean, I'm feeling a little better since you said that, Gary, I ain't gonna lie about it, but what's confusing to me is I think we just need to really go through this thing line for line. It
We're
says-
gonna let Gerald talk in just a
It
second.
says private sewage works, it says to regulate public and private sewage works. I mean, to me, you're talking about private individuals.
Well, the intent, Shane, and we can modify that definition, is like sewer district, the sewer district of Livingston Parish Sewer District, that's a public sewer. Ascension wastewater, that's a private, utility. So that, we wanted to capture both. You got the private for-profit sewer utilities, and then you have the public parish, owned and operated utility, like the Livingston Parish Sewer District. But it has nothing to do with the individuals at all.
Let's let Mr. Gerald talk because.
I think that's a good idea.
Well, I'm just gonna say, because part of the master plan, if you go look at the master plan, one of the drawbacks for the master plan identified as one of the problems that exist in this parish is lack of parish-wide sewer. You wanna, I guess that's what you're
Well,
gonna talk about.
let me just say, I agree with Mr. Bubba that we should have a parish-wide sewer system. The only thing that I wanted to do was address some of the things on this ordinance, and some of the things in this ordinance I think are good, but one that I want to do was talk about the franchise fees. You know, in this parish, you have hundreds of mobile home parks and apartment complexes outside the Livingston Parish sewer system or any other public sewer system. $5 on top of what, I think most of you know, I have a mobile home park on Jubilee Road. I have 53 units. That would equate to $265 a quarter. Additional money on top of what we pay right now, which is $25 a month or more, that my tenants have to pay. Now, when you say you need to collect $5 franchise fee to create a parish entity to inspect me, okay? I'm already inspected by DHH, DEQ, and I have a consultant hired to come in quarterly or monthly and do water sampling for DEQ. So what you're doing is a duplication of what everybody else is doing. I got 3 entities already doing what you're doing. Okay, it's okay. Now, when you come and you do a franchise fee on me and you regulate me, how you gonna regulate me? Okay, DEQ already has my perimeters every month or every quarter that I file, 5 or 6 perimeters. I got a DEQ discharge permit. Anybody can look at it and see how I am. Okay, what enforcement powers do you have more than DEQ? If DEQ regulates me, and let me tell you something, they can be pretty tough. You know, sometimes they want to make you cut the grass, you know, a little bit more often than you do, and so forth. But what enforcement powers do this parish have more than DEQ? So if I send my results into DEQ and I meet my perimeters, or I might not meet 1 out of 5 perimeters, what are you gonna do? How are you gonna make me do something different or more stringent than DEQ? How are you gonna do that? What enforcement powers are you gonna have more than
I
DEQ?
think this ordinance says you could find
Well, it's $5.
$30,000 a year.
It's
What
$5.
was it, $500 a day or something? Wasn't the fine in here?
They fine you heavily. Let me tell you something, years ago.
Do you know any? Or?
Years
I
ago,
think it was
I
$5
went before
a day for every day you
DEQ. They're
back.
very, they have lawyers, and if you don't bring a lawyer, you can't bring a lawyer to the second meeting. And they regulate everybody in this parish, and you can look at any discharge permit you want to. But when you do, when you find out that I'm not quite right, what are you gonna do about it? Okay, you got my $5 per customer per quarter, but what are you gonna do with it? You can't do any more than DEQ. What can you do? I'm just telling you, it's unnecessary. It's just another regulated body that by the parish that can do nothing, that has no powers. So what are you gonna do? Huh?
Mr. Gerald?
I'm asking you a question. What powers would you have more than DEQ?
I agree with you 100%.
But you got about $5 more. But
No,
meanwhile,
I
you
don't
got,
either.
now that's not to mention thousands of houses and subdivisions like Mr. Frog said. You got, if you had 1,000 houses, every quarter that developer, whether it's Modad
another
One or
thing, too,
whoever,
I
pays
think
$5,000 to do what?
The more we dig into this,
To do what?
even if you did have some type of authority to take the property owner, you know, over the trailer park and take the operator over the trailer park
Where's the fines at?
and shut them down. It's the people inside the trailer park trying to survive in life that's gonna suffer, because now they're not gonna have no electricity and they gotta have nowhere to use the restroom and all this type of stuff. I think we're really opening up a can of worms here, and I think that.
I already charge as much as I can charge my tenants, and
That's what I'm
most
saying. I mean,
apartment
it's those-
owners
it's-
do
it's
is
the
an
people
unnecessary
inside that. Now, I don't agree with,
financial burden on
I don't
top of
agree
what we
with
already
polluting
have.
the environment. Now,
Well,
that's the
I'm
one
But
thing that.
I'd really be honest
really
with you, if
bothering me here.
if I thought you were doing something good, I would say so. But you can't do any more than DEQ. You cannot.
Let's
How?
see where we can.
Well, DQ is not doing their job at this point in time.
I think they are on the western side of the parish. They going through the ditches on, here south of Walker looking for tail lines, and they caught some mobile home parks down in Walker South. They are doing that. They're getting more and more stringent on the western side of the parish.
Is that Kenon or is that?
But-
It could be both.
Anyway, I think there was something that I think it's an ordinance. I was told back when I was on that sewer board a couple of years ago, I asked Mr. The councilman from Walker at that time, him to come before the board to create a parish-wide ordinance to require developers, when they have a sewer plant, they were selling them to an operator for $1 because the developers didn't want to maintain the sewer system. Well, then, when I got on that board, I found out that the sewer district, especially two at that time, had spent several $1 million to buy plants, $1,000 to $1,200 per house in every subdivision, and they had to go borrow that money and bond that money. And I tried to get Mr. Ricky Gall to create an ordinance by the parish at that time to require the developers give that plant or first right of refusal to the sewer district. So the sewer district wouldn't have to go out and borrow all this unnecessary money.
It's in this.
So
it's
if that's in there,
it's in
that's a
this order.
good thing, okay?
Oh, I wanna let you know, I found the fines. Any person violating any provision of this division, what's that noise? Is that your hearing aid? Oh. Any person violating any provision of this division
Listen,
may be punished by a fine imposed by the parish for the following schedule. First offense, $250 per day. Second offense is $500 a day, and the third offense is $1,000 per day. And every day any violation continues is a separate violation.
Well, DEQ already has those powers,
So
and they do that to you.
So my question is, but even if you find somebody $1,000 a day,
They're out of
how are they
business.
gonna pay the fine and fix the sewer?
They're out of business.
I mean, we got to come up with a better solution.
Well, and
Yeah,
I'm
how
just-
you gonna collect the fine if you can't? if
I'm
they
just
can't fix
telling
it, pay
you,
for the sewer?
there's some good things in here probably, but that franchise fee is a duplication of work by everybody else. It's unnecessary and on me and all the other.
Well, I ain't in favor of starting another government department either.
Well, it's another government
We can
agency
do it
within the
in-house
government.
without
And what are you
starting
gonna
another
do?
department.
Nothing?
Jennifer, John don't want
Nothing?
to charge a franchise fee. He wants to do it in-house. Where you got the money to
we're
monitor?
definitely not doing that.
Okay.
Well,
So, I mean, now let's,
And my only holdup is,
We need
how are
to
you
worry
going
about
to
drainage
make them
first.
pay? I mean,
Okay,
even
all
if
right.
all else equal, everything works out, how are you gonna make them write you a check? Because, what are you gonna do?
You can't turn the sewer off.
Especially if the
Right.
DEQ says
Can't
they're
turn
in
the sewer off,
compliance,
can't turn
and
your
we're saying
electric
they're
off.
not.
Right.
How are you going to make them
So,
write a
you
check?
know,
Well-
and let me say this,
There's a
you
lot
know,
to talk
we are improving our streams. And if you go back 10, 15 years, our rivers and our streams are getting cleaner. Now, they may not be getting as clean as Mr. Talbot would like them as fast as they are, but they are improving. I mean, the city has moved out, taken over a lot of bad sewer systems. Other sewer districts are expanding at a rate that they can. So we are moving forward. It's just gonna take time.
well, and like
If
I
we-
said, I'm all for parish-wide sewer. I just don't like the way we're going about trying to do it. Because we're leaving so many people out,
Yep.
and that's the only thing. But, I mean, we can figure out some way. I know
See
some
what you-
subdivisions where they going down into, Brown Road and in that area. Then they coming back out. And then there's a street, that's these things again. But, then they coming back out, and they got a subdivision there, and everybody in there wants to tie in the sewer,
Right.
but they can't do it.
Well, and that's a different problem altogether.
And that's what I'm saying, yeah, but.
Eddie, I mean, I've got some people that wanna come by your office and talk to you about this, and if Mr. Gerald says there's some good things in here, and I'm sure there are some good things that we need to look at, but
I want to clarify too.
You know, there's another
Thi-
thing
I-
too.
If, this,
Go ahead.
I'm not,
You were
I
asked
guess,
to help,
I
you're
guess by
trying to help.
default, I'm carrying the flag, because I, as well as anybody, in detail, I know the problems that we're facing in Livingston Parish. And, I was asked to prepare a draft that you guys could
Who asked you
consider. Mr. Gary asked me.
Oh, so, there's the-
Wait a second,
Not just Mr. Gary.
wait a second.
Not just Mr. Gary,
Who funded the draft?
Mr. Leighton Rich, Parish
Okay,
President.
thank you. Don't
And-
throw me
and-
under the
and-
damn
And
bus.
this is a real problem that the district has faced in their attempts to expand. And, you know, Gary's trying to, in my opinion, help, establish parish-wide sewer. He's been pushing the district to expand, and they have been. And he asked me to put together a draft based on the problems that I know exist, and that's what I did. But understand, if you guys crumble this up and throw it in the garbage, it ain't gonna hurt my feelings none. I say that, it will hurt them a little bit because I love Livingston Parish. And I know for a fact that if you guys would pass some version of this ordinance, things are gonna get better in Livingston Parish. But if you don't, ain't no hard feelings, and I promise you, I'm not gonna harass you guys about trying to pass it. I'm just here to help you make some, educated decisions if you want me here.
I'll tell you
And
this
as the
much.
finance director, I'm not opposed, please don't hear that, I'm not opposed to this. I just sit on the other end and see the lack of, or the issues that we have with execution of these. You know, the theory is great, with actual execution, it gets to time to pay the man. So I just wanna make sure that we answered all those questions. I'm gonna be devil's advocate, but how are we gonna make it happen? You know, in theory is one thing, but they fail in the execution sometimes when it gets to my office time to collect the money. You know, so I just wanna make sure that we've covered all the bases.
Well, there's one other thing I'd like to say. I'm gonna shut up. Whenever they ran city sewer, or that's District 1 sewer down that way, John?
No, in front of your house,
Yeah.
Bubba, that's City of Denham Springs sewer.
Yeah, but they got two of them.
well, it's Denham Springs Sewer District 1. It's just an expansion of Denham
Okay,
Springs
yeah,
Sewer.
all right, that's what it is. But anyway, I was told, if you don't wanna tie in, you don't have to. But then they come back and said, we're gonna make you tie in. I said, wait a minute, you're gonna do what? We're gonna make you tie into that sewer. Well, how you gonna make me tie in? We're gonna turn your water off. I said, go right ahead. I said, but whenever you go into my house, where my water well's at, and my pump's at, I'm gonna have you arrested for trespassing. Never heard from him anymore. And I finally woke up one morning, I said, you know what?
You
You're
gonna
not
tie
too
in?
bright.
Are you tied in now, Bubba?
No, I've been tied. Only because I didn't wanna see any more sewer
But
in my ditch.
That's right. And you chose to tie in.
I chose to tie in.
But I mean, that's one of the many cases I'm talking about is, you know, we have these plans and say, we're gonna put this new sewer system in and we'll make everybody tie in, but how do you actually make them do it? You know, I mean, carry a big stick, I mean, like, what do you know, we need to know, it needs to be spelled out, how we're gonna actually accomplish.
I don't know if we're ever gonna get to that point, cause
Well, that's the
we
only thing I
won't
ask.
even talk about the
Please
issues of,
keep that
we won't
going.
read it enough to figure out how we're gonna make anybody do it. Anybody else got any comment? Anybody wanna make a motion to
There's some
adjourn?
comments from the
I
audience.
have one question.
Come on up.
I hate to get up here and ask this question.
No, you don't.
Yes, I do, because but it's something we need to think about. My brother was on a filter bed system and he never had any problems with the plumbing. Never. Then they came in and they put in a sewer system and they forced him to tie into the sewer system. It was a poorly designed sewer system. He had called plumbers out time and time over a period of time to fix the problem because the quote, smart engineer that designed the thing didn't do too good of a job. And he was paying plumber fees. It got so bad he moved. What's gonna protect, and this is something we need to look at, how are we gonna protect the consumer, the sewer my sewer pipe, from a poorly designed sewer system? The other thing is, we talked about health. Back in Mr. Harris's early years, they had tuberculosis. And they used to have cesspools all over the place. And the health department said they gotta go. So they left. And it was just a few, I say just a few years, golly, gee whiz, it's more than a few years ago, they brought them back. So is the sewer system really helping with the health? Excuse me, that sounded bad. You see what I'm saying? They might change the system on you tomorrow, and now he's gotta do a lot of other things to get that done. And third thing, we were told, or he was told, that the DEQ couldn't do nothing about a sewer problem he had in the trailer park next to him that was eroding into us. It wasn't until he got Channel 9 News in did something start happening. And it's still not completely solved like they said they were gonna solve it. And they told him there's not much we can do about it. We turned it over to the financial committee and it's out of our hands. So I'm kinda like him, if the state can't do it, what makes us think we can? And these are just things to think about. I think y'all on a mission that is ungodly. I don't know how y'all gonna solve the problem. It's a nightmare. We're on flatlands and we gotta do something with the sewer. I guess we could can it, and we could do like New York, put it on a barge and ship it all over the country, and sooner or later somebody will take it. Never mind.
Motion for adjournment. Thank you, sir.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Got a motion from Shane, got a second?
Second.
Sean, any objection?